Hello and welcome. Are you ready to consume? My name is Dylan, aka Queen. Across all socials, I am KaneQueen. That's KaneKween. Two E's for Twitch and YouTube, three E's for Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Founder of Entertainment and passionate consumer of entertainment media. Consume Culture is a podcast about shifting the way we consume entertainment media for the better. It's not cancel culture, it's consume culture. Today we have once again a returning cast member, Matthew Ramsden. Welcome.
I like the idea of being a cast member. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wasn't really planning on saying that, but I kind of like it.
I kind of like that. Yeah, it's almost like like a House of Gaga kind of thing.
Yeah,
A little bit.
yes, the House of Queen.
Oh, we love it.
Um, I'm stealing Disney's brand, calling all my
They,
employees the
they,
cast members.
they have enough brand to go around.
True.
They can share that.
So today we are consuming The Last of Us Part 2. Oh my God. When I tell you, I have wanted to talk about this for so long, in depth, not only with you, but just like in general.
Right, right.
I think I even mentioned it last episode. Yeah,
I think we got it. I think it was like touched upon as
yeah,
like, oh, that's going to be a whole thing.
yeah,
But,
yes.
yeah,
And
and it is.
today, here it is. But first, let us tell you what we've been consuming lately. So, Matt, what have you been consuming as of late?
So the most recent thing I consumed was I safely and social distancingly went to a movie.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
like the theater, and it was kind of weird to be back. I have to say, Showcase Cinemas is doing a fantastic job. We're not sponsored by them, but feel free to throw some of that sweet, sweet cinema money our way.
Yeah, please.
Um, but so Showcase Cinema is doing a fantastic job of social distancing, of making sure everyone is being safe and everyone is enjoying in uh, an activity that is kind of slowly coming back. Um, I sat with friends, but each had a seat between us. Um, yeah, so we were practicing safety. And I went to go see Tenet. And
Oh my God. Say no more. I can't wait to see that freaking movie.
yeah,
Like, I love Christopher Nolan films.
mm,
Um, I love the Pattinson. Uh,
mm.
and yeah, I can't wait to see that. Please, no spoilers.
I'm not. No, I. So here's the thing.
Okay.
I don't think I can spoil it.
Oh.
Like, it's not a very like spoilery movie in that way.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, just the spectacle of it, the
Okay.
like just sheer how dare you
Yeah.
of it, like
Yeah.
kind of thing. And this was a thing I noticed when I watched a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies. He has these plot points or these like kind of plot ideas, and he writes the script as such.
Yeah.
So like The Prestige, the movie opens with like Michael Caine talking about like the pledge to turn the prestige, and the script is written like that.
Right.
Um, there Tenet has a similar thing to it. That's all I'll
Okay.
say.
Okay.
But
I mean,
overall, it's an achievement of editing. Like the person to edit that thing, like you can do whatever you want forever.
oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, I personally have not felt comfortable because of the era of COVID going really
Mm,
anywhere.
mm,
And so I really don't. Even like my groceries and stuff I get delivered. So
right, right.
yeah, I haven't felt comfortable doing any of that. But it makes me sad because the movies, if you know me, you know the movies are like my favorite place
Yes.
to be
And
at all times ever.
right, and that was the thing. So like the people who said they wanted to go are like, okay, are we okay with this? Are we doing this? And like, all right, what are we doing to, kind of do our part in a way. So we had, the hand sanitizer, we had the, masks and distancing and all of that. We were very, very conscious of what we were doing and what we were trying to do,
Totally.
just to kind of get, you know, out a little bit. I know I'm still kind of wrestling with certain things like, oh, do I go out to restaurants? Do I go out to that? And like, still every time I'm like, this still feels weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we will get back to the new normal sooner rather than later. Whatever after
Hopefully.
whatever after this looks like.
Hopefully. But in the meantime,
What
as
have you been
I
consuming?
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
as I spend my days very much indoors, uh I've been doing a lot of Twitch, and today on my Twitch channel we started a brand new game that actually just came out yesterday. Um, the beta was kind of open for a while, but officially came out yesterday. It is called Spellbreak, and
Not where I thought you were going with this.
what did you think I
I
was going to say?
I thought you were gonna say Avengers.
Oh, you know what? That actually came out today, and I have not picked that up, and I'm very excited to pick that up, but it's gonna have to wait because it's a whole issue that I have so many games in my backlog as it is. Um,
Yeah,
there's no reason I should have added Spellbreak to this list,
but it was there.
but it was there and it's free to play.
Right.
And so Spellbreak is like if you took Fortnite and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and it had this beautiful battle royale baby.
Oh.
It's so fun. Like I started it last night because I was like, I don't know if I want to play this on stream. I'll just see how it is. And
Mm.
I played like 3 rounds and I was like, oh, I am in it to win it. This is great. So yeah, I played it on stream today. But yeah, it's battle royale. So you start out on a map, you jump into a map together, just like Fortnite. And I don't know the max people. I think since it just came out, the lobbies are pretty small. But
Right.
typically it's like anywhere from like 30 to 40 people in a map, and then so instead of like guns and collecting weapons and stuff,
Mm.
you have magic and these like magic gauntlets.
Okay.
So you start out with whatever gauntlet you choose. You can choose like wind, fire, um, ice, toxic, stone, and each of them have different abilities. And then when you get into the map, you collect all these items that are like, uh, collect this room so that you can become invisible, or collect this room so you can
Okay.
fly. Um, it is so fun. It's a fun take on like the battle royale because I feel like there's really nothing similar to it because there's absolutely no guns whatsoever.
Mm.
In a battle royale, you'd kind of expect there to be some sort of gun type thing, and there's not. And it's really fun. It's really pretty. It's like Legend of Zelda-ish graphics. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I very, very, very much enjoy it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
great.
is Spellbreak?
Spellbreak, yes.
Okay.
It is cross-platform, and I think it's for like everything, like PS4, computer, Xbox.
Uh,
I think it's on the Switch. Uh, but yeah, it's cross-platform, so you can play with whoever the heck you want.
that is a good and a bad thing because I've seen PC players. And I'm not afraid of a
Oh,
lot of things, but PC players.
I may or may not have disabled crossplay so that I don't come across computer players.
Out of just sheer fear.
Fear.
'Cause
Like,
I've seen what I've seen what they can do.
I mean, I think in general, games with a keyboard, people are somehow insanely good at it. I don't understand it because I never grew up playing games on a keyboard except for like Roller Coaster Tycoon and
Right, not never
Sims.
like shooter games or like anything involving a modicum of skill.
Correct.
It was always like Sims,
Yes.
uh, Roller Coaster Tycoon. I remember I had a Survivor computer game
Mm.
that was like you need to play the game of Survivor and you need to survive, and it was good from my
I love
memory of
that.
it.
I love that description. I have
It's
this
like I mean,
friend that played Survivor, and what you did was you survived, and period.
yeah, you did the show. You
Oh,
like did the yeah. No, it's literally like Survivor brand Survivor the video game.
oh, wow! I did not know they had a video game. That's
They
cool.
had a really bad video game.
Where the heck is the real world video game?
Where's
I
the
want to
Bad Girls
throw,
Club video game?
yeah, I want to throw mattresses over a balcony and like knock back in the club and have to like stumble my way back to the house.
And that's the mini game. That's like a little like a quick time game.
Yes. Okay. So,
So we're doing this.
talk about stumbling.
Let's
You trying to make
stumble
it
our
sound?
way through trauma
Yeah.
in The Last of Us Part 2.
Quite literally what I was gonna say. But yeah, today's main topic is The Last of Us Part 2. And uh I would like to start with what we thought the game was going to be before we played it. And it's interesting to me because I do a lot of like post game watching videos and analysis and whatnot.
Hmm.
If I really 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 love the game, I don't do that for just anything, and I did that for this. And one of the analysis that I saw was saying you really can't talk about The Last of Us 2 without knowing or at least referencing uh, the first game, The Last of
Mm.
Us. And um, after playing the first game, when it came out and I played it, and I was surprised at how good it was, because obviously it was a new IP. No one had played anything like it before. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the story was pretty groundbreaking, and it was one of those moments of like, wow, video games are really headed in a direction where they're going to tell just as gripping, if not more gripping, stories than what we see in movie. Um, but that was kind of it. For me, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I love these characters and I care about this story so much, and like, I'm head over heels for the lore and whatever.
Right.
It was cool that it was set in Boston, but that's really the only like connection that I had to it. And for some reason, right before The Last of Us Part 2 came out, I just had this like gut instinct feeling of like, oh, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to be a moment. Uh, and I didn't know why I felt that. It's not like I had this crazy connection to the first game, but I felt it. And I'm curious to see kind of what you were thinking going into it.
Right. So I remember playing the first game and absolutely loving it and just having a connection to it. Uh, just the story, the execution of it, the grounded nature of it. Um, there was a book I read in high school called The Road that is also very similar to it. I know Neil Druckmann, the director, said he brought a lot of inspiration from that to The Last of Us. Essentially,
Oh, I didn't know that. I also read The Road, and
yeah. So apparently he brought a lot of that from to The Last of Us, which you can kind of see.
yeah,
Uh,
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's a little more hopeful. I would say The Last of Us, believe it or not, is a little more hopeful than The Road. But yeah. I mean, I remember playing it and just absolutely loving it, and I remember them talking about it and them divulging kind of what they could, and them saying, well, this is if The Last of Us Part 1 is about love, Part 2 is about hate. And that intrigued me so much because I'm like, all right, well, I mean, so we're going in a I guess a darker direction
Mm.
with Part 2, and we'll see what happens. And I had no idea what the plot was going to be because they revealed nothing when all the kind of the quote unquote leaks happened. I didn't seek them out. I didn't want to. I'm like, no, no, no. People worked hard on this. Believe it or not, like, I want to honor their work, and I'm going to do it fresh.
Totally.
And
I also did not see any of the leaks, and I'm so glad that I did not. We're gonna get into that a little bit, but yeah, I'm really glad I didn't, especially because after all of my post game research and watching interviews with Neil Druckmann and the rest of the cast, one of their biggest not regrets, but the thing that kind of disappointed them the most about everything surrounding the game was what was leaked, and they describe how devastated they were that one, something was leaked, and that two, that was leaked.
right.
And we'll get into that later, but yeah, I did not pay attention to the leaks, thank God.
Mm. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I was just okay. We're in a different place, and I did not expect it to be in such close conversation with the first one.
Totally. Yeah, I remember the first thing that really struck me and made me like want to care about the game was at E3 one year. I don't remember which E3 it was, but
Mm.
they had this whole separate tent for PlayStation that they like built for The Last of Us, and they would like had all these string lights and made it look like a very uh authentic kind of hoedown, throwdown type environment.
Right, right, right.
But the event was them showing the party scene where you see Ellie and Dina kind of interact for the first time and have their first kiss in front of everybody.
Mm.
We didn't get the full extent of like what that scene was and what it meant to kind of all the characters involved. But I thought, because that scene, then they like show them kissing and then it goes into like a gameplay example of Ellie going through like a grocery store, attacking all these people and you don't know why, and then it goes back to them kissing. And I thought up until I pressed start on my controller the first time I started playing the game that it was going to be a revenge story about Dina's death.
Yes, same.
I thought, oh, Ellie finally found love. Ellie came to terms with her sexuality and, found someone close to her, and, they passed away and now she has to get revenge.
That was what I thought. I thought it was a sequel in that way, that Joel and Ellie were gonna team up again to, take down the people who took down Dina.
Right.
And
And before going forward, I just want to say, if you don't want The Last of Us Part 2 spoiled for you, please do not keep listening, because we are going to dive deep into pretty much the rest of the game. So this is kind of your warning. If you don't want spoilers, we're going to talk about a lot of different spoilers. Um, but yeah.
yeah, so Dina does not die.
Yeah. No
Um,
spoiler.
Dina doesn't. Dina
Yeah.
makes it for a good long. Yeah, she makes it.
She makes the whole game, which was,
Yeah,
again, the antithesis of what I
what we expected.
thought this
In
game
in
was
fa-
going to be.
in fact, the someone else rather important dies
So,
rather brutally.
so we're gonna start from the beginning. We're gonna go as fast as we can and just truck through what we
As
can.
much as, yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
as much as we can get to. So we start with Joel telling Tommy about how he had to save Ellie, which is a really nice way of saying he had to slaughter a lot of people
people,
and also risk the entire world to save Ellie,
right?
which he doesn't totally like disclose to Tommy.
You're right. He kind of like, I get the feeling he kind of dusts over it.
Right, because
It's
Tommy's
like
like, "Well,
she,
what did you do?" And he's like, "I saved her." And then it immediately jump cuts to a shot on the floor of this whole hallway of people dead.
right,
It's like, yeah,
and
that's a really light way of putting it.
of saying you systematically took out an entire militia.
Right, right. So, uh, and goes back to what you were saying about you never expected it to be so close to home and so intertwined with the first game, because
Right,
now if you go back and play the first game now, it's a whole nother experience, because what you're doing as the player physically in your hands causes The Last of Us Part 2,
right.
which I
Which
think is part of the reason why people feel such an emotional, pull one way or another, because it's more than just watching a movie and letting it happen. It like you yourself performed the catalyst for what the second game is.
right, and it's I think for a lot of people that is, I don't want to say an uncomfortable feeling, but it's also very, it goes against what a lot of games do. A lot of games like, no, your actions are your actions and they are self-contained and whatever. This is fun. We're having fun here. Versus this, which is said, no, your actions in this life have ripples and have effects.
Totally.
And what they're going to do is they are going to really cause some unforeseen things to happen. So, with the choice that you make at the end of Last of Us Part 1, with the decision to rescue Ellie and shoot everyone
And also lied to Ellie.
and lie to Ellie, what Joel has set up for himself, A, his death, kind of inadvertently, and B, he has set up this intense amount of trauma for Ellie
Totally.
by saving her.
Totally. And I think, I'm curious to hear what you thought of the ending of the first game, because it kind of harks back to it in the beginning of part two, showing the scenes of them, like, walking to St. Mary's Hospital, and him saving Ellie, and then them having the conversation, and Tommy even asks, like, did she believe you? Like, did she actually
Yeah.
think what you were saying was real? Because, you know, I think the subtext there was like, I don't know if I would believe you, and I think, in my opinion, I think Ellie, whether she knew or not, she didn't want to. I think she was way too
Mm.
young to understand the like weight of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the ending of The Last of Us is so challenging our notion of what, again, a kind of a groundbreaking thing of what a video game can do. It's going to really push the limits of what this medium is in storytelling. We're not going to give you a nice, closed up ending or some finality. We're going to leave this really ambiguous, and we're going to leave you with a lot of very complicated feelings because life is complicated,
Yeah,
and that's what we're
and
doing. Yeah.
if you could describe The Last of Us Part Two in a couple words, it would be, this is gonna make you feel really uncomfortable.
Right, for
And
like
also,
20 hours.
this is gonna make you really question, um, ethically and morally, your standpoints on, you know things that aren't comfy to talk about. And so, with that being said, fast forward to, Jesse comes down and tells Ellie and Dina that Joel and Tommy never returned from their post. Um, and Ellie is like, they wouldn't do that. They would have told somebody or whatever. Um, and come to find out, on Tommy and Joel's post, which basically, if you don't know, means they were going out to hunt infected. You know, this whole community kind of takes turns going out to hunt infected, so that not too many are able to get toward their like site
Mm.
to keep their people safe. And on their posts, they run into Abby, which is actually um, a scene that you play as Abby. Um, and Abby immediately, I mean, this is what one of the many things that amazes me about this game is you can see it in Abby's face without her saying a word that she knows exactly who this is, that she's shook, that she has no idea how to handle this situation.
Hmm.
The motion capture and the realism of the acting in this game is absolutely it's phenomenal.
Absolutely. I mean, the voice acting, the motion capture, everything is just every little detail is shown so clearly and so decisively. Like there's nothing just thrown in there.
Right.
Yeah. So with Abby meeting Joel and Tommy on patrol, Abby's been kind of overrun with infected, and Tommy and Joel team up with her to kind of get them out of the situation. And they're going, oh well, where can we go? And Abby suggests, oh, my friends, we'll go back to the ski lodge. She goes, oh, that could work, and they fight their way.
Immediately I was like, oh no, 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 no. This is bad. This is
Yeah.
bad. And so I'm gonna try and get to a couple of hot points in the game where people, kind of feel polarized one way or another
Yeah.
on the decision making of the writers and what happened and whatnot.
Mm.
And this is one thing that I've heard a lot of discussion about is why would Joel ever accept this as something safe for him to do? He would never just find a stranger and be fine with like going along with them into their friend's safe house. And from what I've heard from the writers and from other perspectives and my own perspective,
Hmm.
I think he realizes that when it's too late. I think
Okay.
I think he has lived in this like comfortable space in his community and hasn't really encountered a lot of danger up to this point. Um, and he slips and he's human, and maybe one of Joel's biggest characteristics is that he is stubborn and that he is really uh, stuck in his ways and doesn't trust anybody. But what if he slips up? What does that look
Hmm.
like? You know?
Right. That's interesting. See, what I was thinking was that when I saw the scene, I thought he was going with it because there's no other option. This is
Well,
what we
that
have to
that
do.
too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, so I think it's if you're ever in kind of a state like that and just your adrenaline is going, you you know your thoughts are going a mile a minute. Just well, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? What's the next step? The minute someone says something like that, you're like, okay, like you don't have time to go over every single possibility that could happen.
Right. And I think as the player, there's the dramatic irony of you kind of putting the pieces together that like because in the beginning you see that Abby and Owen find their site and they're talking about a him. They don't say Joel, but they're talking about hunting him.
They're talking about Joel. Yeah.
And you put the pieces together that they're talking about Joel. And so you watching it, of course, you're like, why would he do that? Like that's so stupid. But
Right. You have information that the characters don't. And so the characters are not going to behave the way you want them to because they don't have your information, which is what makes that scene so painful.
yes, and like I said, the motion capture itself of like she doesn't have to say a thing. You can see it on her face that she's
Mm.
shook because she has spent the last 4 years waiting for this moment, and it just fell into her lap.
So I know it's kind of a, I don't want to say it's a joke about The Last of Us, but Abby's arms being like ridiculously jacked and her being ridiculously jacked.
Yeah.
Someone pointed out to me, goes, "Oh yeah, I mean she's strong," and someone goes, "No, no, 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 she's been training."
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the one who
She's
pointed this out to you.
right. I was like what? It's like
Yeah.
no, she has been like training. She has been doing like deadlifts with a picture of Joel with like his eyes X'd out in
Oh yeah.
front of her, like ready to go, like
Yeah.
a bull.
When we see that flashback of Abby before any of this started,
Mm.
she, has a very
She's very
a small build, but
right.
you don't go from that to looking like a linebacker.
Actual literal tank Abby.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, without some serious reasoning,
right.
and that's why she spent her whole life.
She's training.
So so let's dive into this scene. So
They go
uh,
back.
they go back and basically they're ambushed. Joel walks in and finally says his name because they ask him who he is, and he says Joel, and everyone goes silent.
Kind of
And
rustles a little bit, stands up.
he's like, "You sound like you've heard of me or something." And Abby says, "Because we have," and takes out a shotgun and shoots his knee off, basically. And
God.
even it's like I at that point saw it coming that it was an ambush. What I didn't see coming was that this was Joel's death scene.
Yes. And that it was going to be brutal, violent, unromantic, at no hero's death set up for him.
And here's the controversy around this scene is that obviously, you know, people love and adore the first game, and when you have a character that is so well renowned and loved, um, that is taken out from under you, and not just killed. I mean,
like
she takes a
done
golf
in.
club to his face, like that's which also
Yeah.
tells the player this is not just she kills him. This is like there's something more to this because you don't you don't put your shotgun away to replace it with a golf club just
Mm.
because you want to kill somebody.
That and she tourniquets his leg.
Right, so that he has quite
Right. So
literally
he
no way of getting out of this situation, period.
right. And she, I think she even looks at him and says, "I've like waited. I've to do this for a long time," something to that effect, and just starts going, and it's extremely painful to see, and then we're able to switch back to Ellie, and as she's looking for Joel, and she hears him, uh, kind of crying and screaming as he's being hit, because she's found the ski lodge and starts to kind of go down the stairs, and she busts in and sees him there, and he's
That
just a
that
bloody mess.
that shot of her going down the stairs of like when you turn around and you start going down the stairs into that door, that stuck out to me so much, and I don't know why, but I know that the game developers know why because we go back to that exact shot at pretty much the end of the game.
You're
Uh,
right, right.
but it was like like hearing him screaming and running down the stairs, and you the player having to run down the stairs. It felt like descending into hell. Like
Mm.
what was Ellie's hell. Um, and again, the controversy about this scene is that they took Joel away. Uh, Joel's not that weak. He would have found a way out. Or how could you kill the main character of the series? All these different points about people being pissed about that scene, and it's not to say you can't be mad about that scene, because of course you can. If someone you cared about has that happen to them, of course you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even when I was watching an interview of, I'm forgetting uh, the actress's name who plays Ellie, but her and
Ashley Johnson.
Ashley Johnson, thank you.
Yes.
Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker talking about filming that scene. They both were like, that was our least favorite day on set. Like, they hated it. It was awful. And of course it was, because it's hard and it's difficult. And these are really serious actors who take their job really seriously and really go there.
Right.
And but my thing is, this was going to happen anyway, whether it was Abby or anyone else that Joel had ever wronged in his lifetime. And we know for a fact from even the first game that Joel stepped on a lot of toes.
Mm.
And he had this coming, and I think Joel even himself realized, as it was happening, he knew this was going to be how he goes. And I think it also raises the point of, just because you like a character does not mean that they are a good person.
Yes.
And I think that the rest of the game talks about that, because if you look at every single person in the game, even my favorite character of the game, which is Lev, which we will get to,
Mm.
even
It-
Lev, every single person has done some really messed up things that in outside of a beloved video game, anyone in the right mind would deem as not a good person.
yes, and I think that's one of the main kind of that's the main thesis, or one of the main thesis of the game, is that these characters are human, and they're very complicated, and they've done good and bad. They do not have there is no wholly good person. There is no wholly bad person. There's just who you are at the time.
Totally.
And like you were saying, like, these characters, including, characters that, we love and who we kind of want to care so deeply about. Lev, I mean, for me, I absolutely would kill for Dina. I love that character so much, and I understand that she has done some dark stuff.
Really, I mean,
Um,
all of them really dark
yeah,
stuff.
and I think that's part of it, is you can't love the idea of someone, you have to love the person. So like with Joel, you can love the idea of him being this kind of father figure to Ellie, and that he's, strong, and that he's, kind of does what needs to be done. But you also need to acknowledge the fact that he slaughtered a lot of innocent people.
And not only that, but that he is, I wouldn't say he's like super old, but he is older, and he
Mm.
is also human. And I think, especially in like fictional universes, I think in general, none of us want our favorite characters, to die, obviously, but eventually, you know whether it's shown or not, that's going to happen to all of your favorite characters,
Mm.
unless there's some like subsect of immortality. But uh,
Right.
we're talking
But
about The Last of Us Part 2, which is the most mortal,
grounded, 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 grounded.
grounded game. Speaking of grounded, I on stream recently, I attempted a grounded permadeath
Oh
run of
no.
the game. And if you don't know, whoever's listening, um, there's all sorts of different difficulties in the game. Grounded is the highest difficulty, where basically they strip you of a lot of different abilities, so that it's a lot harder, and they also make the resources in the game almost slim to none, so that you can't really collect anything. So you have to like really, really, really take your time and be scarce with resources, as if it were real life. And then permadeath is something they added recently, where there's three different options, but of course the one that I went with was the most difficult. So basically you can choose, once you die in the game, you can choose for it to restart at the front of the chapter that you were playing, restart at the front of the act that you were playing, so act 1 or act 2, or restart from the beginning of the game. And of course I did the beginning of the game.
Which is just
Insane.
oh,
Insane. I mean, it's to the point where like if you wanted to play the entire game with permadeath mode on, you would have to sit there and play through the whole game and not leave, because you can't manually save it. If
oh, you can't manually save?
Nope,
I didn't know you couldn't. Oh God.
nope, you can't manually
Oh
save it.
no.
If you exit the application, if you if your system turns off, if anything like that, if it goes offline, like you're dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I thought you could save.
Nope, you can't save at all. And I mean, not even in like the other two modes, you can't save. It's like you're gonna beat
That's
this,
twisted.
or you're not.
That's twisted.
Well, so in my run, guess how long I made it?
Day one.
I made it an hour into the game, including cutscenes. Like, mind you, it was because I pressed the wrong button. But
So
but you know, that's telling of the mode itself. Is like, in real life, if you
we're
press
not
the wrong
here.
button, oh well, you only
You're
get
dead.
you only get one chance.
One of my I knew about permadeath and I knew about like grounded and all that. I didn't know you couldn't save. I thought you could save, but I
Nope.
knew about permadeath. And there is a video that is I want this played at my wedding, which is it's a guy in the synagogue and you have to like swing across.
Yeah.
He hits the wrong button and drops
Oh,
and dies.
oh no.
And he just like you just scream like and like throws and just gets out of his chair and like runs away, and just like that is the most heartbreaking, because I mean if you died at a place that like you're expected to die, like if you died fighting the Rat King, yeah, that's to be expected.
Sure.
But like if you died in that's just like, oh, like no.
Yeah, it's yeah. I love, well, I love the additions that they've added to the game, because they've given you a reason to go back,
Mm,
especially in a story game where it's virtually the same thing, just varying difficulties.
right.
And I the only game I've ever gone back and played through all the way through from beginning to end is a couple of installments in the Kingdom Hearts series, but that's because they are my absolute favorite of all time. Um, the Last of Us Part 2 is the only other game I've gone back and said I need to replay this like immediately. I think it was like right after I finished the game, maybe a day or two
New
later.
game, like New Game Plus, we're doing it.
Yeah, New Game Plus. It started all over again.
Yeah.
But going back to Joel's death scene,
Yes.
so Abby kills him with a golf club in front of Ellie, and then Dina and Jesse basically save her from where they were and take her back, and then you see the moment that struck me, because watching his death scene, I don't know what your experience was, I'd love to hear, but for me, his death scene didn't make me cry. It made me feel an anger that I hadn't felt in a very long time. Like
Yeah,
it was like
yeah.
I couldn't cry because I was so mad. And that's why like when people talk about being mad about that scene, like of course, because I felt it too. But I don't think I don't think that you can really have a final comment and stance on that scene if you don't know the full context of the rest of the game. Um,
Mm.
and to that point, like we were talking about earlier, we were both glad that we didn't see the leaks because guess what? The leaks were that scene and that scene alone. No context, no before or after story. It was simply that scene.
Joel dies. That guy's
Joel,
it.
and all you know is Joel is killed in cold blood, and Ellie has to watch. And you don't know why. You don't know what led up to that scene. You don't know. It's like, of course, if you were to read that, first of all, read that. It's not even like they're watching the scene happen. Read it.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to be like, how in the hell would we ever end up here? And I'm pissed because this is my favorite character and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's about letting letting the piece of works explain itself and talk for itself. And this is why a lot of the times I will avoid watching trailers for movies because it's like I don't want to one, I don't want to watch the movie before I watch the movie.
Right.
And two, I want to make sure that when I go into the movie, I don't necessarily have this expectation of how I want it to go because I'm not the one that wrote the movie.
Yeah. We don't know what this person is thinking. We don't know kind of where this is coming from. But I mean, I just remember watching that scene, my mouth hanging open, thinking they're doing this. This is happening. Um, I think I don't remember what I don't want to say it was anger or sadness. I think it was just nothing.
Mm.
I well, like not in the sense of like I didn't feel anything, but like a numbness,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
just like a oh my god kind of sensation.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think outside of what the story is and just in context of what the game is, it's like what you said. It's like, oh, they went there and this is a story that is not in a way necessarily for the fans. This is a story that's for the artistic message of what they want to get across, and we're in for a ride because if you can kill Joel at the beginning of the game,
what else are you gonna do?
what else are
You
you allowed to do?
you've taken what a lot of people consider one of the most sacred parts of this, and you're just like, no, we're not. We're gonna uh, we're gonna kill it right now and have
Like
that be it
in the beginning.
in the beginning, in the first hour, easily the first, yeah. And there's the way that happens and the way that's acted as well. Ashley Johnson, oh my God,
Oh my God.
like
Ashley
her,
Johnson, Troy Baker, uh, I'm escaping the name of uh,
Abby, yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna look it up one second.
yeah. But I mean,
Laura Bailey,
Laura Bailey, um,
absolutely incredible.
and it never reads as dramatic. It never reads as like staged. It
Mm-mm.
reads as real. Um, and one of my favorite little details of just the acting. It's obviously enhanced by that like ringing sound that you hear as Ellie is kind of processing or trying to process. Is her saying like I'll fucking kill you. I'll fucking like kind of in this like half daze, like kind of coming in and out of reality. I'll fucking kill you. And it just it goes through so many ranges of emotion of just that one phrase, and she just absolutely knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. And um, I watched an interview with Laura Bailey, and she was also talking about that, about doing that scene, and she was like, until you go back later on and you're forced to see that scene from Abby's perspective, when you see the shots that are taken from Ellie's perspective, and you see kind of the back of Abby standing
Hmm.
with Joel, she was like, what you're not seeing is me sobbing, like uncontrollably crying, trying to keep it together, because she was like, Ashley's performance
Yeah,
was almost too real,
I believe that. Yeah,
which is so chilling to think about, like having those three powerhouses amidst everyone else give it their absolute all in one scene.
we're not worthy. I mean, we don't deserve it.
No.
It's just it's. I think it's just such a perfectly well done scene. I think it's an intense scene. It so captures when you look back knowing everything, it is one of those plot points that you just keep coming back to
I mean,
as,
I
the
I
more
think
you think about it.
I think this scene and what it means for, not just what it means for the story, but this scene is a scene in gaming that will be talked about first for decades.
Yes. I would put this up there with BioShock, A Man Chooses a Slave Obeys. That reveal
Truly.
with Andrew Ryan.
I mean, even while watching it, I kind of felt that. There's so many moments in this game, and especially specifically that scene where I felt like, oh, I'm watching history be made in gaming, like,
Mm,
because this is something that I've not really yet experienced in a game before, and I realize that I've had so many of those moments throughout the entire game, um, but that in particular felt like, oh, this is a choice that you can tell was made from a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and arguments behind the scene,
yes.
and so
Yeah.
much love.
It's hard to think of a scene like that with the word love, but no, I see it. Of just care.
Well,
Of just
because you, like, they've said post game, nobody cares about Joel or any of the characters more than Joel, more than Troy Baker, or more than
mm,
Neil Druckmann, or more than Ashley Johnson. And so, what I mean by love is like making sure that if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, and
right.
it is not gonna be something that is mulled over. It is not gonna be, oh, he died and then on to the next thing. It's really making sure that the player themselves get to mourn the loss with the writers, with the creators, with the actors, with everyone else. And that's one thing that I was going to get to earlier, which was, um, what hit me and what made me cry and what made me feel the sadness of it was getting to that shot of Ellie sitting over Joel's grave,
Yeah,
and
that
then
did it.
having to having to walk through Joel's house with your own hands and see that Joel has had this whole life for the past 4 years that he's built up, and he has hobbies and interests and a personality that he never got to show.
Mm,
And it's different because it's a game. Because in a movie, when you watch that, of course it would be affecting you, but not in the way that you yourself have to push yourself. And I'm speaking about, you know, many
Yeah.
people, but me specifically, like pushing myself past crying and feeling so angry and like and truly mourning the loss of this character, and then the game saying, well, you have to keep going, you physically have to, or you won't be able to get through this game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that particular section just feels different, obviously. Um, and I think you look at the town and you look at that, just the environment of it, just a little emptier and just a little bit more dull without Joel there. Um, I think you can see all these little character choices that Joel had. I think someone pointed out to me, you can see um, Joel was reading about space. There's a
Mm,
space book on his nightstand,
yeah.
which kind of is a not foreshadowing, but it's a reference to later in the game, the museum scene.
Oh,
Um,
oh, which might be my favorite part of the entire game.
and yeah, I mean, I have so many different. The minute we just you decided we were doing The Last of Us, I was just like, aha. There's so much I want to talk about, and so many different scenes I think we can go to and just navel gaze at this
Totally.
forever.
Forever, yeah. The
Um,
space scene for me was, when I say my favorite part, I mean like
Playing that is,
playing that and feeling it and feel the vibration of the controller and feeling like and experiencing that moment with Ellie. Favorite, I don't think is the best word for it. I think special is a really good word for it,
yes,
because it's another one of those moments like I was talking about where you just won't get this experience if it's not a game. Like there is something that games bring to your experience of a story that you can't explain. And even just in the design of the vibration of the controller and feeling um the rocket lift off, and then feeling it fade away, and then feeling the tingle of your hand go numb and go silent as everything else goes silent, and you're watching Ellie uh using her imagination as she's floating through space.
mm,
It's one of those unexplainable moments that otherwise or previously we would have thought, only movies can have that sort of magic, but movies
yeah,
can't rumble your hands in that. Like,
right, right.
it's a weird phrase, but it's just one of those things where
It can't put you there.
you can't put you there.
And I think that scene in particular is so incredibly special because at that point in the game we've been with Ellie for a while and she's you know been through some stuff. She has been abused and shot at and stabbed and her. I think that's after the horse blows up, like
Yeah.
all of this horrendous stuff. And so then you get this little glimmer of childlike wonder and this little scene of love between these two characters.
And
It
to
I
me, it was like, wouldn't it wouldn't it be Ellie's dream, whether she realized it at that moment or not, to lift off in a rocket ship with Joel and leave everything else behind?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it's one of those. It's a scene that takes the characters out of their circumstance and makes them forget about the infected, the dangers they face every single day, the world they live in, and kind of makes them be human for a little bit. It's the same feeling I get with the giraffe scene in the
Yes,
first one. It's
yes.
just this little moment. It's not long, but it's just a little moment of just like yeah, the world outside's on fire, but here we're okay.
And for those of you who need context, basically there's a flashback scene where Ellie or Joel surprises Ellie with a trip to the Museum of Science, and inside the Museum of Science, there's this little cockpit that you can crawl into, and inside the cockpit, Joel surprises Ellie with a cassette tape for her birthday, and the tape is a recording of a rocket ship going off into space. And in this scene, she puts her headset in, and she's wearing a helmet that she found outside in the museum, like a space helmet that you yourself actually get to choose between three of those helmets. And yeah, you see her imagine herself actually lifting off. And I think that scene is what the game itself felt like to me in real life. And I think that's why
Mm.
it hit me so hard, because I I recently moved from my last place to the first time being on my own in the apartment that I am in now. And that move, literally the day that The Last of Us Part 2 came out, was the day that I was moving. And I said to myself, like, I'm going to wait until I'm totally done with everything else and moving and all of that stress to start The Last of Us 2 in my apartment at night, no responsibilities, nothing left to do, totally moved and just ready to play this game. And it'd be the first thing that I do, like totally on my own for the first time in my entire life. Um, and so it's like a direct correlation between, her just wanting to lift off and her wanting to have that sense of security, but also um, independentness, and the escapism of the thought of being in space outside of the war on the infected and the wolves and the Seraphites. Um, it's just a really beautiful moment to directly mirror what The Last of Us Part 2 is to people in the real life, which is escapism and letting themselves escape what right now is one of the craziest times of our entire life.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a beautiful connection to it. Um, and what I another thing I really enjoy with the scene is just the fullness of it. So yes, I love you know all of the Hatasaur jokes because you have a hat and you can put it on the dinosaurs,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's really funny. And Joel kind of rolls his eyes and bees it is a dad about it, and Ellie's having a grand old time putting her hat on a dinosaur. Um, and there's a great the shuttle scene, but then right after that is this reality kind of coming back of going through the next section
mm,
with um, with going through the next section of the museum and this blocked off area where Joel pushes Ellie into the next area and she's I'll unlock the door, and then she can't unlock the door, and so he has to come around and meet her on the other side, so she's alone.
yep,
um, and she's walking through and she's seeing these statements written on the wall, like, I tried to save them, these kids ran away, I shot them, um, they wanted us to kill women and children, that kind of very heavy, horrifying stuff. And after a boar charging at you jump scare, which got me very, very good, uh, there is the symbol of the fireflies on the wall with liars underneath. and that's when Joel comes in, and you can kind of see the past start to catch up,
Totally.
and what Joel thought was done and was taken care of start to bleed into their new life.
Totally.
And it just makes a
Also,
very well-rounded, very complete spectrum of a scene,
and
which I
also
love.
the kind of symbolism of Joel being this like light at the end of the tunnel
Mm.
for Ellie, and the game itself going full circle about how yes, Joel is gone through the majority of the game, but he pops up through Ellie's psyche until the very end, and he is a driving force even when he's gone for everything that Ellie does and every hard choice that Ellie makes. Um, and you talked about the boar being in like the museum at the end there.
Mm.
And a little fun fact: um, there was actually, you know, the scene at the end where she's in the shed and she sees that one of the was it goats? Was it lambs?
Where is this?
At the very end in the farmhouse, and she's trying to get all of them into the shed.
Oh, oh yes, I think it's a piglet. Yeah,
Yeah, she's like,
yeah, a little baby animal.
yes, there's like a little baby animal. There's one of them that hasn't gone into their like
Like the pen yet.
their pen
Yeah.
yet, and then she goes over and accidentally hits over a broom, and then it triggers her PTSD. Um, that scene was actually supposed to be her out in the forest, like away from her farmhouse, hunting boars, and they had this whole scene where
Oh.
she went and was hunting animals, and then through hunting this boar and like hearing the squeals of the boar um, reminded her of like Joel yelling while she's walking through like the wolves.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
They were like
that's
that made it to the very end, and then we only scrapped it due to like pacing. But it was that was supposed to be the scene that like reminds you that Ellie has PTSD from that.
and that wow did that wow. That's a lot. That's
Yeah, it is a lot. But so I hate to cut it short,
Mm.
but we actually way ran over time.
And we haven't even gotten to like
And we have only scratched the surface. So um we will do another episode of this. Um, but this will be kind of the
part one,
part two, part one.
part two, part yeah.
So before we go, I would like to get into recommendals. So, whatever mood you're in, whatever situation you have going on, if you just want someone to tell you about some cool stuff to check out, we've got you. It's called recommendals. Basically, recommendations that we think will be insightful for your mentality to consume in one way or another. Listeners can write in about what's happening in their life to entermentaltainment@gmail.com. Let us know if you would like to be anonymous or not. And instead of giving advice, we give entertainment media recommendations that would be insightful for you to consume. You can also write in and tell us what you think works or what does not work for the show. We're totally open to suggestions on topics that you would like us to talk about or how we can make the podcast better. And if we can't think of any recommendals, maybe some brief non-professional advice on your situation. So Matt, do you have any recommendals?
So yeah, I mean, I personally for this past week I've been a little stressed. We've been a little scatterbrained, a little anxious for the majority of the week, and usually when I uh, am like that, I like to kind of put something comfortable on. The one time I like to watch something comfortable, because if you know any of the sort of the content I normally consume, it is not that. I like to be jostled and, you know, Uh, I like the uncomfortable stuff, really.
Clearly, as both of us are
Yes,
like, we love The Last of Us Part 2.
yeah, give me all of that.
We
Yeah.
all of it.
So every now and again when I do like to put on something nice and familiar, for whatever reason I always fall into cooking YouTube.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Like it's these channels that are all about cooking with all these very nice people who are have great personality and they're not problematic at all. And it's like this is wonderful. Um, Two channels I really enjoy are Binging with Babish. He basically takes food from culture and recreates it or tries to recreate it. He's done like the sweet rolls from Skyrim. He's done like lasagna from The Sopranos. I think he did the ratatouille from Ratatouille, and he's been doing it for a couple of years. He does a lot of really fun stuff like that. Him and Joshua Weissman, who's mostly just like I'm going to teach how to cook, but I'm going to be a actual living, breathing meme the entire time, and that's kind of my safe spot that I like to kind of just put on in the background.
I love that. I know my sisters are also obsessed with like cooking shows and like, cooking reality to
Mm,
television, stuff like that. I personally have never like dove into it, but I also think YouTube I could see being a much more accessible and quick way to just kind of sit down and watch something that doesn't necessarily take a lot of time nor like mental capacity.
right. And I mean, you could get, depending on which YouTube spirals you fall into, because that's the only way I think we consume YouTube is just in spirals.
It's so real.
Really. But like you can get into it, like it's either that or I watch like video essays of people like analyzing stuff, but like in a fun way.
Hmm.
So like I watched a 45-minute video of a woman named Lindsay Ellis going into like the history and what went wrong with the movie Cats.
Interesting.
And she's like, let's talk about the history of the musical Cats. And let's talk about how we got to weird CGI Rebel Wilson taking off her cat skin to reveal another cat skin underneath
Oh my God.
in a like dancer one piece.
And hey, I'm just gonna come out and say it. As many cringy moments as there was in Cats, I enjoyed it.
And I think that's all that matters. Absolutely.
And I
And
know like that's the most hot of hot, like hot boiling hot take. But
but
listen,
like,
I grew up with the musical. I grew up watching the VHS like every single night with my sisters, and I love the music so much. And I think if for nothing else, watch it for freaking Jennifer Hudson.
and I think it's funny that you mentioned that because I think the woman reviewing it or talking who made this video says like, and then everyone falls silent for Jennifer Hudson doing Memory because even Jennifer Hudson is that damn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even Jennifer Hudson, like everybody like, oh, no, we need to watch this. But
She's
yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those movies I imagine being at like midnight showings until the end of time,
mm,
and God bless it for it.
totally. I
What is your recommendal?
My recommendal is something that I know you will get a kick out of.
All right.
But um, speaking of spirals, I've been going down not so much YouTube spiral, except for if it's Last of Us 2 playthroughs or analysis or interviews. Um, I went down a spiral of music I used to love in high school.
Oh wow. Okay. We're
And
getting into this.
I would say high school / college for this one.
Hmm.
Um, guess what album that I recently just fell back in love with?
Kimbra?
What? Oh my God, I'm so shook that you guessed that. Yes,
Because we both were obsessed with her. I still am fucking obsessed with that woman.
I
Um,
have never listened to anything she put out past Vows, which like
oh,
I know, fake fan.
No, no, not.
But okay, so I recently rediscovered Vows. Um,
It's so tight. It's
and
so good.
oh my God, it's so tight is a great word for it. It's so uh well put together, well thought out, well ordered.
Mm,
Um, a versatile album. Almost none of the songs sound the same. Um, and I would say it's a recommendal because something that I really like to do personally, if I am really going through it,
mm.
is um, I really like to find albums that I can sing my heart out to, like
Yeah,
like by myself, just like really bad, loud singing. And for me, it's really therapeutic. And
yeah.
this album, whoa, girl, you find a couple of
There,
those, you belt them out, and you will, I promise you, you will feel better.
Settle Down, Two Way Street,
Settle down, good intent,
Old Flame,
playing gold ring.
Playing Go. Oh my God.
Oh,
So I am gonna need to make you listen to her last two records,
I know, I
uh,
really should.
with the Golden Hour, which is complete opposite of Vows.
Interesting.
Golden Hour is trippy, Salvador Dali, Dada inspired pop music,
Ooh, okay.
but still has that same kind of, but it's still tight. It's not just meandering and weird, but it's just like, no, we're gonna kind of lengthen the formula a little bit. Um, and then, I mean, Primal Heart is just a achievement, and I'm very angry no one is talking about it, or not enough people are talking about it.
Well, then
Um,
I will have to take a gander, but that is going to be it for this episode. We have gone so far over time because we're both so passionate about The Last of Us 2. But if you would like to support me and my business, this podcast, and anything I do creatively, you can subscribe to my KWEEN Patreon that will grant you perks, including shout outs on the podcast, dance tutorial videos, specialized thank yous, and so much more. Um, Matt, would you like to plug anything of yours?
uh, if you listen to the last episode, you know that I have a blog called Something More Out of Life. You can find some writing there. I will be posting some more stuff there more regularly. It's been a while, but we're going to get back into putting out some content.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming back to join me, and buckle up because we still got a lot to talk about.
I'm very excited. Thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
Of course. So make sure you're following us on here on Spotify at Consume Culture so you never miss an episode. Um, and remember, stay geeky, stay freaky, stay you. And remember to please consume kindly.